I care so much about this. I could talk about any one thing I say for a really crazy amount of time, but I won't. Don't worry.
I love that. And I really think it's so wise of you to say, okay, Lord, what do you got for me? Because you want to be so in tune with him. Like, Lord, I want to please you. I want to do what you're calling me to do. One person discipling to another person of how to grow spiritually, how to grow in their career or their role. Sometimes we discount the power of that, don't we?
Oh, totally. And whatever story God has given you is going to be used in somebody's life. Like he's going to purpose you for that. I tell people I'm just a regular girl. Like I don't know every single thing. God doesn't wait for us to know every single thing to do the one thing. I still overthink all the things, but like I think God can use just the littlest yes.
Be open to listening to what people share with you that they see in you, and believe them that these wonderful gifts and talents are there for you, and the Lord wants to use them in beautiful ways.
This encourages me so much because every time I do a video at the church, I do this.
Oh my goodness. I just love you so much, and I have so much I want to talk about. So we're just going to let it roll right here. Meldrim, you are here with... I don't know what I was going to say, so I'm going to have to start that one over.
This encourages me so much because every time I do a video at the church, I do this. I just lose everything that was up there.
Oh my goodness. I just love you so much, and I have so much I want to talk about. So we're just going to let it roll right here. I love you. I think you're such an amazing woman, and I believe that everyone listening is just going to feel so encouraged. Like if I had to use one word, I would be like, Christie Meldrim, you are such an encourager. And I know that you have such a heart to encourage the next generation, the younger women. A lot of people will say next generation. What does that mean? The younger women that you are around. And so I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your heart and your role of what you're doing to encourage younger women.
Yes. So my specific role is that I work for a pretty big church in the Atlanta area called Westridge Church. And I've been there. I just hit 15 years. So I've been in all the feels.
Wow.
All the feels.
Hey, you know what? I have heard a statistic is that 90% of people who work in ministry end up leaving ministry. So congratulations. That is really a huge milestone. 15 years. Good job.
So I love it there. I'm currently the guest services director. So I'm just... You might be able to tell I'm a people person.
No, we can't
extroverted. So we welcome the people in and get them connected and all that good stuff. And so, but in my role with that, I just have, like I said, just like a lot of connection with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Even on our staff. And really now that I've been there for so long, there are younger girls who are the age I was when I started there. And so God has just given me a heart for them and also just has really used like this 15-year milestone to kind of look back this whole last year. I've just been like, oh my gosh, I'm almost at 15 years. But what do you want me to do while I'm still here? Like, I don't know how much longer you have me here in this specific role, but there's so many young girls who have been at the church, they are invested, they're called. And so how can I just really dedicate my time and energy and invest in them just like that was done for me? And so I don't think 15 years ago I would have said that I was still going to be there in 15 years, but it's been a place of growth. And there's always been somebody who's just kind of seen something in me and taken me along. And I want to replicate that in other people too. And so that's kind of my story.
Yeah, I love
where I
that.
am.
And I really think it's so wise of you to say, okay, Lord, what do you got for me? Because you want to be so in tune with him. Like, Lord, I want to please you. I want to do what you're calling me to do. I want to have as much impact on the kingdom as possible. And obviously you've found your lane, your niche of saying, okay, I'm going to pour into these women that are younger. One of the things that I always think about when I hear of older women mentoring younger women, but we can talk about that like from a spiritual perspective as well. Sometimes people who are older than us in physical age are actually not as mature spiritually. And so we have an opportunity to not only mentor younger women, but also older women that are wanting to mature in their relationship with the Lord. So I think we have an opportunity to have an impact on so many. I love that you are saying, Lord, what do you have for me? How do I use my time the best? So what do you feel like he has been sharing with you lately of where do you pour your time into?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really started thinking about and hitting this like big milestone for me is what is the greatest leadership principle that I have received like over and over and over again? Because
So good.
this really has been like I had to move to work at this church and everything. And so this has been a place of growth and of huge challenge. But I love a good challenge, which is why they've kept me there. I know it because I'm like, oh, you're going to challenge me again.
You're up for any challenge. Good job.
But one of the things I have had different seats on the bus. And so every single leader that I have had has believed in me before I have done all the things. And I think that is one of the coolest leadership principles ever. And it's something that I think God let me recount that in this last year so that I would do that for others. Like it was like in the recounting, he's actually challenging me to make sure I'm doing that. And it's not even just for the younger generation. Like you said, like I lead a huge volunteer team, a huge serving team at the church. And I want to do that for them too. Not just the people who I'm working beside that are younger than me or like you said, are the same age as me or older than me. But just anybody, just what is it about their story that they might need that one person to believe in them and count out, okay, I see this in you. Because that is what every single leader I feel like has done for me that I have served under, worked under, is this is the thing I see. And like, it's funny because when I first went there, I don't think I ever wanted necessarily to be in front of people. But like the very first pastor I worked under, he was like, I see this in you. So I want you to share your story. And I shared my story and I was like, I didn't hate that. I kind of loved it. And then that leads to other things and other things and other things. And so I've just had like continued opportunity for that. And so not everyone is going to be just like me. They don't want to be the person in front of everybody and all that kind of stuff. But what is the one thing that they just need to be believed in for or that needs to be counted out in them or just like put it out in the world like, okay, I see this in you, but I want to show you how God might want to use that in you. And that's been really fun.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times people who are more wise and discerning, like the Lord gives them the answers of this person has this gifting, this talent. And a lot of times we don't even know we have that talent or gifting. I remember when people started telling me certain things that I was good at, I was like, am I? Really? I don't think I'm going to be good at that. And it might have scared me to death to do those things that they were asking me to do completely outside of my comfort zone. But then when I started doing them, just like you, oh, I actually really liked that, but I didn't know. And so I feel like, you know, our listeners right now, if you're older, we have an opportunity to encourage younger ones. But if you're younger, be open to listening to what people share with you that they see in you and believe them that these wonderful gifts and talents are there for you and the Lord wants to use them in beautiful ways.
And it's interesting too in this whole process, like if there's somebody and let's say I really respect them, I respect their leadership or the voice they have, and they say something like that to me, I'm like, I'm really listening and leaning in. And even in that moment, without anything else happening, I'm feeling believed in. And things come from that, being believed in and being prayed over and thought of and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, and I think as mentors or older women, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say I'm the older woman.
I'm just accepting it that I have to say that
It's
now.
okay. It's okay. It's okay to say that. But as the older woman, like share what you see in other people. Be bold in saying that because younger women want to know. I know your story. You needed somebody to believe in you when you were younger. What's your story? Why do you feel like you're such an encourager and you want to believe in others because that's what you needed when you were younger?
So, a quick version of my story is that when I was 11 years old, my mom left and my dad was the primary parent that raised us. And there's a lot of different levels of our story, but ultimately, you know, my dad got remarried to Olivia, which I was very hesitant about having a stepmom, because, the only thing I knew is that they were wicked stepmoms.
Yes.
I didn't know there were good ones.
Yeah.
But thankfully, she turned out to be an awesome one. And so, there's that missing part in my life. Like, everyone has just something in their story that, we all have these different levels in our story. And mine was just that, now I was being raised with my dad and brothers, so in a house of guys before he married my stepmom. And my stepmom got to be this person who, talk about being believed in by somebody and somebody seeing things in you, and she never tried to take a place that wasn't hers. And I really respected that. And it turns out I learned that because now I'm a stepmom,
right,
to 4. But she really was that really great example of what it is to be believed in, but also what it's like for somebody to be in the background and they're praying for you and they're your cheerleader and they're for you. And, in relationship, they're also calling out some things in you that, you could work on and things like that. But that was definitely a missing part in my story in those like really key years where you're like preteen, teenager, and just not having that female voice in my life. And so, in addition to that, I think there's something really special. Like, tons of people have amazing relationship with a mom or another woman, but somebody who's not in your family, who's really like also pouring into you and believing in you. And I always use that term, locking arms with you and showing you the way. Like, it really comes down to some of those things. And that is life altering in the best ways. And I think that's where some really special things happen, where we get to line up with what God wants because somebody is in it with us and they're seeing it with us and they're seeing that path that God is like presenting. And depending on like where you're at in your walk. So like, I think of a younger girl who I'm walking with right now. She's in the busyness of being a young mom and all the things. And she has a job and all these different things. And so for me, I can be like, girl, I see this in you. Like, I know you are in the thick of it with having a baby that's not even 1 year old and all the things. But this is what I see in you. And I know God wants to keep developing this in you.
So good.
And we have the best conversations and connection. And I really do see her as like a young version of me. And so I want her to have some of these things in her pocket even earlier than I did.
And we never know who women have in their life that is believing for them. Do they have an encouraging mom? Do they have an encouraging friends or aunts or coworkers, whatever that is? We don't know who they do or don't have. And so, hey, if you see it, call it out. I think that's so encouraging. So you talk about your stepmom, Olivia, which she's an amazing woman. I love her so much. And now you are a stepmom. And so you have had this thread of a blended family through your life. And so now you and your dad, which is, I think this is so cool. Like, who does this? You and your dad have a blended family ministry. Tell us about that.
Okay, so this is called Blended Not Broken, and we are just really, really getting into developing it and having resources, but you can find us on blendednotbroken.org. And it really came from when my dad and Olivia, my stepmom, got married, and there's just really hard parts in a blended family. And so there really weren't any resources. So it began way back then, when you are the one in the struggle and having all the hard times. And then all of a sudden, if that didn't all scare me enough that I watched my dad and stepmom and all the kids, I went and married somebody with 4 children myself. And so now I'm stepmom. Not now. I've been stepmom for 13 years, so they're older now. But we just love to share our very vulnerable story because we do have a heart for, this blended family always used to be called broken. And so that's why we called it Blended, Not Broken. Because we don't want your family to be a broken family. We want it to be a healthy, vibrant, blended family. And there are some real challenges inside the blended family when you're bringing 2 families together. But there's some really beautiful parts too. And so this whole topic that we're on today really kind of goes with that, because in the same way that like I care really deep for the younger generation of women in my life, I also care for my stepkids and what they're going through. And I kind of have that same thing with them because I'm not their mom, I'm not their biological parent, but I am somebody who, just like my stepmom did, can believe in me, can be in the background praying for me, can call like really special things out.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say this. There's grandchildren too.
Whoa.
So I know we're Cece and Pop Pop. I didn't want a G name. I just wanted to be Cece.
Yeah.
Once I'm a little younger.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got my, what'd you say? G name?
See, yeah, I didn't want a G name.
Yeah.
So
I
chose Cece.
Wow. Yeah. I've got my G name picked out too.
Do you?
And I'm like, I'm not ready to share it yet, but
okay.
I'm like,
we can't go public yet.
Not public, but I'm like, okay, when the time comes, I cannot go with a G name. I can't do that. And I love that you call it a G name. I just can't quite do it. Like, that's my mom. That's my grandma. That's my great grandma. Like, I just can't quite grab onto that one. So.
And in the same way, because there are grandkids.
Yes.
It's cool to be able to believe in Mark's kids now in their parental role.
Yes.
You know, and like, because we've had 13 years of marriage, and so 13 plus years of developed relationship with his kids, like, I am seeing the fruit.
Yeah.
Like, there were some hard days because his kids were in their teenage years when I came along. That's not the easiest time to marry somebody that has children, those teenage years, but like, just sticking with them and believing them at that time has like the coolest fruit now as we're seeing them all become parents. And I always like to tell people, the one that I probably struggled with the most, I might have the best relationship with now. Wow. And it's cool for me to say, look at you as this mom that you are, and she's a teacher and all these things. And that's the same for anybody that God has put in our path to invest in, develop, anything you want to call it, because we get to have that longer relationship, you know, and say, look, this is where you were when we met, but look at even in 6 months, 12 months, what God has done. You've committed. He's done a really cool work in your life. And all of that kind of just goes together.
And I think when you have to have difficult conversations with somebody because there's conflict, that conflict resolution, it can bring you together because you're sharing things that you need to share. You need to be vulnerable with one another. Right. And that can really create a bond, unlike when it's just easy and simple. Yes. So I just want to say I really commend you and honor you for creating a ministry for blended families, because we know 50% of marriages end in divorce. Right. So I don't know what percent of kids are in blended families, but there's such a need. So that resource is out there for anyone listening right now. But thank you for being bold and listening to what the Lord was calling you to do, to create resources to speak on the topic, because you could have like put it in your pocket and said, okay, that was me, but I don't need to talk about that. And instead you just said, okay, I'm going to listen to you, Lord, and live out a life that is honoring to Him, even though despite your difficult circumstances, and being able to use those difficult circumstances to help other people, because it can be beautiful. Mm-hmm. A blended family can be beautiful. I mean, my kids are in a blended family. Right. And so it can be so beautiful. And so often people aren't equipped to know what to do to live out a life that can be wonderful, even when you're in a blended family. So practically speaking, I mean, there's probably a million things you could say, but what would be maybe like your top tip in practically living out a blended family? How do you do that so that everyone is at peace and enjoy in their home?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think one of the best things I could say for that, there's so many, because I care so much about this. I could talk about any one thing I say for a really crazy amount of time, but I won't. Don't worry. One of the things that I tell people, and I've even shared as recently as today, is to invest in your stepkids by being a student. Mm. And so if you're a stepmom and you're having you are on the struggle bus a little bit with, just the relationship, like this relationship is great, but this one is so challenging. That's going to happen. Yeah. Kids in any family are just one's this way.
Whether it's a blended family or not.
It does not have to. It does not have to be a blended family. So I always tell people to be a student of the kids in the beginning and really learn them. And it's the littlest things that will give you victory with them. So as I learned about Mark's 4 kids, I would even learn their favorite junk food snack.
Yeah.
And I was a hero when I came home from the grocery store, you know? And then
I got this for you.
Yes.
I got this for you. I got this for you.
My stepson,
yep.
I remember one time he was like, Dad, Christie likes the same junk food as I do. And I was like, I feel really good right now.
Oh, yeah, I do.
So it's like the little things. And then someday those turn into bigger things. And then it turns into them calling you and not their dad, because this is something I know Christie can talk with me about. And so those are like really, really easy things. One other thing that is just so helpful is the biological parent can make the step parent really shine with their biological kids by doing just really simple things again, you know, just setting you up for success with them, letting you own a moment and let them see that, oh my gosh, Christie did this for us, or Christie thought to ... And it's just in those little relational moments. I even tell people Dylan would like to go to the grocery store with me, and it's like in a car ride when you're there and no one could go anywhere, like really special things can happen. And so it's just cultivating and fostering like the littlest moment with each kid.
So good. I love how the blended family topic goes directly along with the fact that you want to be such an encourager for younger people. I just think that's really beautiful because that's your heart. Because you've experienced that, not having it, you want to be that for other people. So thank you for sharing just your story, sharing your heart, and being diligent in doing what the Lord's calling you to do. I think sometimes we don't feel equipped. We're scared to do those things, but you are being bold, having a spirit of boldness and being courageous in making it happen. What would be like a practical piece of advice for somebody to step into those roles, whether they're a mom who is in the church, working in the church, a mom who is staying at home with her young kids, an empty nester? What would be practical pieces of advice to help women mentor and be bold in helping younger women?
Yeah, I think just in every area of life, like you said, you could be a young mom, you could be totally grandma, like anything in between. There might be like one person who God has just impressed on your heart. So I even think just the power of prayer in like, God, lead me, make me even bold in coming alongside that person. Because a lot of times somebody might not come to you first. Maybe God's impressing, like I had somebody do that with me a couple years ago. Would you want me to meet with you? Like I was just in a new, different stage in my work life, and she was a little older, a little wiser and all that. And I was like, yes, like it's easy for me. It's easy for the person who needs to be mentored to feel like you don't have time. You're busy, you're ... But they don't know that God's impressing on your heart. You have time for this. And I'm probably in the busiest work season of my life, but there's time to invest in the one who can invest in the one who can invest in the one.
And that's true discipleship. I know, people don't really understand what discipleship is oftentimes, but literally one-to-one, one person discipling to another person of how to grow spiritually, how to grow in their career or their role. Sometimes we discount the power of that, don't we?
Oh, totally. Totally. And in whatever story God has given you is going to be used in somebody's life. Like he's going to purpose you for that. And so I tell people I'm just a regular girl, like I don't know every single thing. And God doesn't wait for us to know every single thing to do the one thing. And so, but he needs us to lean on him, and he's always with us, and he's showing us the way. And there's some things that I'm saying yes to recently, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I say yes, and I'm like, okay, God, you got to show me like how to do it. And, just tons of prayer. And also just my husband, Mark, is always like, Christie, you're made for this. Like, he set you up for this. So just like trust him and believe that he's going to show you the way. And so even coming down to do this today, I was like, I don't really know what to expect. Mark's like, Christie, this is fun for you. You love to talk to another woman. Like,
we always have great conversations.
So like I still overthink all the things, but like, I think God can use just the littlest yes, just the littlest yes.
Christie Meldrim, it is time for your truth bomb. What do you got for us? What has God laid on your heart lately that you want everyone to know about?
Okay. So I don't know if this is too deep, but I'm just a regular girl, so it's probably not. So you know how sometimes there's just like the simplest story that you've heard 100 times in the Bible? So the story of the woman at the well.
Yep.
So I got a chance to kind of dive deeper into that story and teach it to the high school group not that long ago at our church. And the way that Jesus views women, especially like what we know about the woman at the well was that she had all the shame.
Yep.
And she was at the well at the hottest time of the day.
Yep.
And it wasn't even, politically appropriate for Jesus to be talking to this one woman, and his disciples were like, what is going on when they came back? That shows me the way that he always has seen women. And
so good.
When I understand that, even all the way now, I'm in my 40s, now that I understand that in this way, like I just saw it differently, and it makes me see Jesus in a way, and I can do all the things that he has asked me to do.
So good.
And that could be like totally just, I've read that, so many times. But for me, like it started with that story. And then there's so many other stories where you're like, he was so purposeful with women.
Yes.
And so I think we can get stuck in that whole conversation. Yeah. And I'm like,
that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. But he has shown us in his word the way that and like to dive more into those kinds of stories as a female, as a woman, just makes you feel so loved and cherished and cared for, and also makes you want to be like, yes, God, I can do the thing that you've asked me to do.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that. That's so good. If you, as listeners right now, if you hear background noise, if you've heard background noise as we've been recording, we're actually at a life coaching conference here together. I'm so thankful that you're here in person, that we could record together. So I want to know, last question, what last piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
Okay. Last piece of advice. You didn't give me very much of a headway on this question. So of all the pieces of advice.
I mean, it could be hair products.
Oh.
You got great hair.
Let's see. My one piece of advice. Okay. This is my piece of advice.
Okay.
I got married when I was 29 years old, and I worried about it every single step of the way. And if I had to do it all over again, I would not worry about it at all, because in the end, right before I met Mark, I was like, God, I'm cool. I'm going to be the single girl, and you're going to make it work, and it's going to be fine. That was a desire of my heart. Maybe you'll take that away. I don't know. That is the thing that I really care about because I get asked to talk to the high school or middle school at our church here and there. And that's what I care about for them is like where they're at. Just draw near to God, be in his word, and he'll take care of the rest. Like he's going to show you the way. And I wish I did not spend so many days worrying about that.
So good.
Yeah.
See, you didn't need time to think about what that question was.
Came to me.
It was so perfect. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.